The one thing Minnetonka did, and I think we really owe our city manager, John Gunyu, some credit, was back in the fall of 2008 when this crisis first started. His experience, I think, with the governor, Arne Carlson, and others immediately helped the whole city council recognize we've got a problem. Let's immediately assume right now we're not going to get any future state aid from the government. And the Market Valley Home
Zilch.
Zilch.
Really?
We're gonna
James Hiller, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be here, Tim.
James Hiller is a first-term Minnetonka City Council member. James lives in the Glen Lake area with his wife and family. So James, tough financial times, cuts to local government aid, challenges in property taxes, pervasive financial crisis. So how is the city of Minnetonka coping with these problems?
Like most cities, we've got our problems due to especially the falling support from the state, the local government aid and other things. But also we have the problem that there's very little building going on, so we are not getting the permits and other revenues that normally come into the city.
What does that mean? Is that a fairly good chunk of the revenues that come into a municipality like Minnetonka?
It'll be about 15% of our revenues.
That's a lot of money.
So it is a lot of money, and it does make a difference in how we move.
So what's happening? Is that falling off the table?
Fortunately, we have United Health is going to be developing a new project in here. So we also have St. Therese planning on building a $25 million worth of senior housing in the Glen Lake area. Couple of very major projects moving ahead. So fortunately, we're not in as dire straits.
So that's the inspections and permits, I suspect, huh?
That will help a lot on those, yes.
Income is sort of steady.
Correct.
What about expenses? So how are you on that end of the equation?
The one thing Minnetonka did, and I think we really owe our city manager, John Gunyu, some credit, was back in the fall of 2008 when this crisis first started. His experience, I think, with the governor, Arne Carlson, and others immediately helped the whole city council recognize we've got a problem. Let's immediately assume right now we're not going to get any future state aid from the government. And the Market Valley Home
Zilch. Really?
We're going to go on the assumption that we're going to have significantly lower revenue from building permits and other things like that. And so we started into 2009 already with a hiring freeze and other things. So we immediately were on top of the problem, well in advance of many other city councils I know who are still 6 months later trying to figure out what the situation was.
So you had a hiring freeze. Did you actually maintain your present workforce, or did you have some layoffs?
The layoffs occurred in about the middle of 2009. In the end, we've lost about 6% of our workforce. Half of those were due to attrition or non-hires. The other half were a layoff we had to do.
Well, you know, national economists and even local economists think that we may be past the very low part of the recession. What do you think out in your way? Is it going to take a while for the city to be back where it used to be, or is it ever going to be back to where it used to be?
We think it will be. The long-term prospects we think are very good. Minnetonka, fortunately, because of the United Health buildings and the St. Therese and a few other major projects that happen to be moving ahead in this tough time, left us in a better shape than many. And so it's going to be easier for us to ride through until that development comes along.
I suspect that sort of the harder you work, the luckier you get with respect to United Fund and St. Teresa's expanding in that fashion?
Well, both have been on the books for a while. Both managed to find funding in these tough times to move ahead.
Tell me, let's talk briefly about fiscal disparities. It's my understanding that what that is sort of a pool of money that is created by industrial and commercial properties, adding to the tax base and then sharing that out among the greater Twin City area. Is that pretty much a description of it that you could at least say isn't riddled with error?
No, I think it's a very good perspective. It helps balance out the taxes to even it out between cities and others, so there isn't the competition or fighting over it.
Right, so the cities aren't getting down on their hands and knees financially trying to entice a project because they might well get some portion of the benefit from that project, whether it's located in their geographic boundaries or not.
Exactly.
Is Minnetonka a gainer or a loser under the fiscal disparities law?
Well, in actual cash, we're a loser. We're wanting to pay in significantly more than we will get received from anyway in that. On the other hand, though, we do receive the benefits of having these other cities around, and the health of the commercial markets in balance. So we also benefit from it. Minnetonka, as a matter of fact, Eden Prairie, Bloomington, Edina, much of the suburbs out in that area are the sponsors. We pay more than we will receive into that program.
And who gains in that program?
Primarily the inner cities, and also some of the outer ring suburbs, as they're starting to develop and get into the starting to grow, they will receive.
How is that program received out your way? I mean, do people deem it to be for the public good, or is there some opposition to the fact that perhaps some of the tax revenues are drained off from Minnetonka?
Well, in tough times, it's always frustrating to have part of your taxes drained off. But there is the perception and understanding that, yes, this helps the entire area where we work and everything, because we are not just a city. We have
We're
to
not
live together.
enclaves unto ourselves, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we got economic challenges. What other kind of challenges does Minnetonka face at the present time?
The key challenges I see in the long term for us is we're getting old.
Yeah.
Right now, Minnetonka, in the last 3 years, we aged over 3 years. We're going up in age.
So what is that age?
Right now, the median age is 53.
Really?
And it's going up fast, and the only new buildings we're having come built right now are senior housing, and that is not helping the problem. As we get into the future, we do need the young families, the young professionals, and others starting to move in more to help keep us a diverse city.
So how do you get them in if they can't, isn't the entry-level housing sort of an obstacle for bringing people in?
We are putting significant efforts into providing affordable housing to address specifically those types of markets. Like that was the original goal of the Glen Lake project, was to provide housing for those kinds of people. The key problem with that project was we originally developed it to make goals of bringing in young families, young professionals, and owner-occupied housing. As time went on, we lost those goals and changed to just what will be able to be built at this time.
Is that an economic decision in the main, or?
It was definitely an economic decision. When the downturn in the markets, other things were having difficulties. The condo market and other things just wasn't supportable in the short term. I think part of the frustration, though, is that a city like us and a city council should be looking at 20 years out. We shouldn't be worried about what's going to be able to be built today.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. I'm Tim O'Brien.